because they weren't sure. Jesus pushes this. And he says, you got to go from talk to testimony. He says, because there are too many of you talking, but I want to make sure that they are talking, but I want to make sure you have a testimony. Can I preach here? You see, talk comes from perception. Talk comes from gossip. Come on, you know talk. Talk, stuff they say that they don't know. Stuff they allege that they're not sure of. You know talk. It happens when we gather and when we break. Talk in the bathroom, talk in the lobby. We talk. But we talk from perception and not necessarily testimony. Jesus says that if I'm going to establish the church, it just can't be a talking church. It can't be a church that talks. It must be a church that functions. And I don't know about you, but for some of us, we could be arrested for identity theft. You know, we got his name, but we're not him. Ain't nobody talking to me. Well, we wear his clothes, but we're not him. You ain't looking at me right. I'm trying to help you that we could be arrested for calling ourselves people of Jesus without Jesus' power, without Jesus' compassion, without Jesus' love, without Jesus' diligence, without Jesus' fervor. Come on here. The real issue is you got to ask yourself, did I steal his identity and didn't take his power? Did I steal his name and didn't take his function? Did I steal his identity and people are looking at me because I'm wearing his name until they're in a crisis? Well, come on, I got Bible for this. That same man that brought his lunatic son to Jesus' disciples, they figured since you hang out with him. I know it's late, but could y'all just stay with me for a minute? He says, listen, since you hang out with him, every time I see you, every time I see him, I see you. I see you walking in front of him. I see you walking behind him. I see you all the time. Y'all eat together. You're always hanging out. So I don't need Jesus. If you've been with him, then do what he does. He says, I don't want you to be a talking church. I want you to be a church that has a testimony. You remember testimony that I was sick, but the Lord healed me. You remember testimony that I was on death's door, but the saints prayed. You remember testimony. People that came to church with goiters in their neck, and the church was in revival, and they'd spit about. You remember testimony that I once was lost in sin, and Jesus found. You remember testimony. Anybody got a testimony? I was about to die, but the Lord saved me. Let me go. Testimony comes. Watch this. He says, who do they say? And then he says, who do you say? Come on. Because see, the deal is Jesus is trying to figure out if that's the public opinion. Tell me what's the internal polling. Give me the internal numbers. If they say this, then what are you saying? Because the real issue is that there's a crisis in identity when you say what they say. Oh man, I want to preach here. I said when you say what they say, when the world says that, you know what, same-sex marriage is all right, and you say it's all right too. When there is political oppression and we're oppressing the poor, and you say it's okay, then all of a sudden the kingdom has a problem when you say what they say, because you should be saying something different than what they say, because you know him. He walks with you. He talks with you. He tells you that he is your own. And the joy we share as we tarry there. I gotta go, but let me just share with you that you've got to watch what you say. Because if what you say sounds like what they say, then the world can't tell the difference between them and us. We ought to say something different, not just look different, not just walk different. We're more than suits and shirts. We're more than skins. We're more than that. We do something. They shall lay hands upon the sick, and they, come on, and they shall recover. Look at somebody and say, recover, recover, recover. Whatever has got you, recover from it. Wherever you're falling, recover. Wherever you slip, recover. Wherever you messed up, recover. Let me go. The church. Sit down, y'all, sit down, please. The church that God formed has been framed by church culture. God created a church, he formed a church, and then the church created a culture that said we don't want to be what God formed, but we'll just be what we frame it. Oh, and you need Bible for it. Here it go. God created man in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. He said, let us make man. Man is, watch this, a spirit that has a soul that lives in a body. But he was created in Genesis 1:26. But then God formed something in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7. And the Lord God formed from the dust of the ground. Because he already made a spirit, he put it in something. You've got to understand that God formed the church when Jesus was having this conversation, and he wanted to make sure that they would not go error. So he says, I want to know that I am the rock. I'm the thing that makes the church work. You will just assist me, but you are not the head of the church. Watch this. We don't live out our because the church has created a culture that refuses to be what God formed.